The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
All right. Now, Bloomberg has reported that the Justice Department is looking into whether Binance allowed Russian customers to access the exchange, which would be in violation of US sanctions. Joining us to discuss that is CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day, who is also editor of CoinDesk's Slate of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Thank you to you too. So just give us your zoomed out understanding of what's going on with Binance and the fact that the Justice Department is now investigating them, as has been reported by Bloomberg, as we also then reported later. Can you just give us a sense of what that would mean eventually? Because it's difficult to understand how many cases there are against some of these big entities, Coinbase, Binance, some of the other ones, but you've been looking at all of them.
Yeah, so obviously this is a story that you were actually working on Friday night, and I was kind of peeking over your shoulder. Bloomberg's reporting that the DOJ is probing whether or not Binance allowed Russian customers to access the exchange in violation of sanctions. It sounds like this is an extension of an already existing, DOJ investigation. We've heard for years now at this point that the Justice Department has been looking into a variety of issues around Binance, including whether or not people from sanctions jurisdictions were able to trade on the exchange and whether or not that's still happening. So this sounds kind of like an extension of that ongoing investigation. We've both heard that there might be, some kind of resolution. Binance, in fact, has said that they expect a settlement to come, within the next couple of months. So we might start seeing, more, I think, information leak out in the next couple of months as the DOJ grapples with whether or not to actually charge Binance and how they're approaching that.
Yeah, we've also had, at Consensus at our conference, we had Tigran Gambaryan, Binance's head of financial crime compliance. He spoke and he said very categorically that we have a 700-member team that addresses 1,300 law enforcement questions on a weekly basis. And that's been Binance's response to any kind of scrutiny that's coming in from regulators across the world. I guess my question to you is, has that been cutting ice? Just the fact that they say that we have a great compliance team, we have an amazing compliance team, and we're building that further because we want to figure this space out and we want to address their concerns. But does that cut ice with the regulators?
That's a very interesting question, and I think we should look at some of the other things that he said, which include saying things like, we kicked off North Korean users and, things like that. So on the one hand, having a compliance department that is, fully up to speed and active and even proactive is sure to be, a benefit if you're DOJ trying to figure out whether or not to charge someone. On the other hand, he did kind of admit that, oh yeah, by the way, for a while we definitely had people from at least one sanctioned jurisdiction trading on our platform. So I imagine that would also come up, in a potential enforcement action. So mixed bag, I guess. It's the kind of thing where he's saying yes, we cleaned up, but in doing so, he's admitting that there was a mess to begin with. And that's the kind of thing that, if you're the DOJ, you might give credit for current behavior, but that's not going to necessarily negate past behavior.
Nick, I want to switch gears here and talk about some news that's coming out of Cointelegraph this morning. They're reporting Ripple's legal battle with the SEC is set to cost around $200 million. Can you tell us about the latest developments there and what this massive number could mean for other firms that become embattled with the SEC?
Yeah, obviously we're still waiting for the results of the summary judgment case. So to quickly recap, last year, both the SEC and Ripple filed their arguments for why the case should be either dismissed or ruled on, without going through the whole hassle of a jury trial or anything like that. And the judge overseeing the case has yet to make a decision on either of those bids. So we're still kind of waiting in a limbo period for that. The price tag, I have to say, it doesn't really surprise me, right? This has been a case that's been ongoing since the end of 2020. We're literally in, year 3 of this. So any other company that's looking at this and thinking, oh, well, I might get sued by the SEC, probably has to accept the fact that they're going to need, a hefty reserve to be able to fight the case. And obviously, we're seeing things, signs from crypto exchange Coinbase that they will be able to handle that. But if you're a smaller company, chances are good you're not going to be able to, have that same kind of fight. At this point, we are still kind of in this, waiting period once the summary judgment ruling comes out. And if I had to speculate, I'm guessing that, it's going to be we're going to see this case proceed to a trial, but, which will be more expensive. It'll be additional cost, additional time, additional everything. Mm-hmm. But, until then, we're still just kind of waiting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, we actually reported, Nick, on this, and we said that it would take about 3 to 6 weeks, for the judgment on the SEC case. And I guess my question to you then is that if that's the timeline we're looking at based on what's reported, what would that mean in terms of a precedent-setting position or a case for the rest of the crypto market? Because we've been looking at this case for a long time in that respect.
Well, the big question, and I think, your previous guest just kind of spoke to this, is whether or not there is indeed regulatory clarity in the US, right? The SEC maintains that things are clear. If you're issuing a token, it's probably a security, and therefore you should try and register and go through the whole disclosure process and all the stuff that securities have to deal with. If the SEC wins the case against Ripple, that'll be legally there's not going to be a whole lot of precedent, right? Ripple's probably going to appeal. That'll go through an appeals court. Then we'll start getting some kind of actual precedent. And then depending on how that appeal shakes out and whether or not the parties involved have resources to continue doing so, that might go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And that will be straight up full-blown for sure precedent. But with the initial case, the precedent isn't going to be legal so much as it's just going to be kind of symbolic. It'll tell companies, hey, there's this one big, really well-funded company that claimed it was not issuing a security, but we've just proved in court that it is. So it'll be a sign for crypto issuers that, okay, well, maybe we should actually do this whole registration thing. On the other side, if Ripple wins, it'll be a pretty huge symbolic win for crypto token issuers all over the US, saying, okay, well, if we do it the way Ripple did it, maybe we'll be able to get away with it. But again, my guess is this case will get appealed regardless of who wins. So it'll go up to at least an appeals court, and that'll take more time and more money, and we won't get actual legal precedent the way lawyers explained it to me until it goes through that appeals court process.
Nick, it's always great hearing your insight. Thank you for joining us this morning. That was CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com.